Hey, it's David Weiner, writer and director of In Search of Darkness, 1990 to 1994. You are listening to The Graveyard Show.
Welcome to the Graveyard.
And welcome to another edition of the Graveyard Show podcast. I am your caretaker, and the graveyard is open, and we are in the season of Halloween. Happy Halloween, everybody. Hope you're having a great time getting ready for the big day, enjoying the month of October, and everything that comes with it. Movies, candy, fun parties, and all kinds of things like that. Well, as you heard at the top of the show, an old friend of the program is back, and he is here to talk about his latest film, In Search of Darkness, 1990 to 1994. Of course, I'm talking about our friend, director David Weiner is back, and can't wait to talk to him about his newest installment to the In Search of Darkness series. And if you're not familiar with In Search of Darkness or In Search of Tomorrow, they are great 1980s horror and sci-fi super documentaries, and I'll get into that a little bit later. As always, once I have David on, after the interview, I always go through the different pre-orders that you can do for the film. And in this case, pre-orders are open from now until Halloween at midnight to get your copy of In Search of Darkness 1990 to 1994. And I will go over the different tiers that are available for pre-order for the film. But before David joins me here on the program, I just want to go over some quick news. And, Terrifier 3 seems to be everywhere now, not just because the film's getting ready to come out, but, the news about walkouts and puking and all kinds of stuff, fainting at screenings, because, when a Terrifier movie comes out, that's what follows as well. And it happened with Terrifier 2, and sure enough, it's happening now. So basically what's happening is at the UK screening of Terrifier 3, there were reportedly a total of 11 walkouts, 9 during the opening scene alone, and one fan is confirmed to have vomited everywhere. I guess, I don't know how you confirm that, I guess, unless you're sitting next to the individual, but hey, you know what? After having seen Terrifier 2 and Terrifier, I get it, especially if you're not used to this stuff. You are going to be in for a treat. Damien Leone, the director and writer and creator of Art, the Clown, said, typically people walk out of a movie because it sucks. When someone walks out of a Terrifier film, it's a testament to the special makeup effects team. I guess we've done our job. And sure enough, he has. Lad Bible says first Terrifier 3 screening had 9 confirmed walkouts during opening scenes. So sadistic, Hollywood refused to fund it. I'm sure. Slash Film said Terrifier 3's opening scene is already causing walkouts. And yes, it absolutely is that disturbing. AV Club says Terrifier 3 has people crying, screaming, throwing up all over again. Bloody Disgusting says Terrifier 3 opening 10 minutes are so shocking that 9 people walked out of the UK premiere. And Screen Rant said Terrifier 3 screening makes audience member puke. Gory intro causes multiple walkouts within minutes. So, Art's back. And apparently he's back with a vengeance. Again, not surprising. If you know anything about these films, you know that they're not shy on on their gore and everything else that comes with it. Well, following that news in the UK, France said, "Fuck this," and Terrifier 3 is going to be banned for under 18 in France. They're like, we heard about what happened over there. It ain't happening over here. In this press release, it says, in the wake of Damien Leone's slasher sequel, Terrifier 3, making waves in the UK after multiple people walked out of the premiere, the classification committee over in France is drawing a line and quite literally banning minors from seeing Terrifier 3. A first for the horror genre since the release of director Darren Lynn Bousman Saw 3 back in 6. The classification committee in France has recommended a ban on the film for minors under 18. This particular rating is very rarely used, and it's the equivalent of the MPA's NC-17 rating here in the United States. In the U.S., Terrifier 3 will be released in theaters fully unrated, and they had that in caps, and there you have it. So, yeah, they're not happy over in over in France. Well, anyway. Terrifier 3 is due out October 11th, which is, tomorrow. So there you go. The Rotten Tomatoes score, I believe, is currently sitting at a 77 on critics and I think 65 on Metacritic. So I will take that as big wins. I think Damien will definitely take that as big wins. And, I mean, hey, Terrifier, baby. It's back. Art's back. And there we go. And if you want to hear my interview with Damien Leone when he came on the Graveyard Show podcast to discuss Terrifier 2 when that came out, all you have to do is walk around my graveyard here, and you will find a tombstone with Damien's name on it. I want to say it's either 45 or 54. I believe it's one of those two, but. Anyway, you'll find it, and it's a great interview. He was really great to have on, and I wish him all the best with Terrifier 3, and I bet you it's going to be a huge movie, and it's going to make a lot of money, and I think a lot of us are really going to enjoy it. Last podcast, I talked about Beyond Fest. This podcast, I'm going to talk to you about Haunted House Fear Fest, which is going to be taking place in New York. The festival is going to run from October 24th through 26th at the Triad Theater in New York, presented by Haunt TV. And Renee Huff is continuing as owner and festival executive director. The Haunted House Fear Fest, presented by Haunt TV with media sponsor Den of Geek, is proud to announce the full film slate and programming for the 6th annual festival, running from October 24th through the 26th at the Triad Theater in New York City. Special screening of Season 3 of Haunt TV's hit series Haunted Discoveries will be there, featuring Ghost Hunters star Mustafa Gedalari, who will be in attendance to present an episode from the new season. There will be a special pre-screening introductions with filmmakers, including Academy Award-nominated director John R. Dilworth, who will introduce his short film Howl If You Love Me, and award-winning director Lauren Keller, who will introduce her short films, A Little of Glass of Rum, and Dark and Stormy. Closing night awards ceremony to take place on Saturday, October 26th, where select films will be honored with awards, including the grand prize Grim Reaper Award for Best in Show. Kodak Motion Picture will be awarding filmmaker grants to the winners of Best Director and Best Cinematography. To learn more, go to haunt.us, HAUNT.us, for more details about what you can see at Haunted House Fear Fest 2024. That's going to do it for news, because as you hear in the background, well, we're welcoming an old friend back to the show. And when that happens, that means my guest is here, and it's time for me to get to work. And our friend David Weiner is here. He is, of course, the director of the super documentaries about 1980s horror, In Search of Darkness, In Search of Darkness 2 and 3, as well as the 1980s sci-fi super documentary In Search of Tomorrow. Now he's here to discuss his latest film, In Search of Darkness 1990 to 1994, which you can pre-order starting now through Halloween at midnight. David, it's great having you back on the program to do our annual tradition here these last couple of years. Welcome back.
Happy to shuffle through the graveyard and avoid the ditches. And I like, it's sweater weather.
Yes, indeed it is. And it's our favorite time of year. I love it.
In the graveyard at night, but it feels very autumn to me.
Excellent. Well, happy Halloween. And, have you been able to get ready for Halloween season, or has work just been keeping you busy on this latest film?
It's a good problem to have, to not have enough time to enjoy spooky season to the fullest when you're doing a promotion for a documentary that you made and it's not your first. So I have zero complaints, but I did make sure before the promotion blitz was going to happen that I would put my spooky town on my mantle over my fireplace,
Nice.
plug it in and set it up. And those Remax houses that are all automated and lit up and all that kind of stuff like that. That's tradition for me and my family, and I am able to do that. And my biggest problem is every year they come out with new stuff, and I'm like, oh, I have no room because I have a full mantle, but I want to get one more thing.
Excellent. Very good. I have yet to really decorate too much around here, but I guess this graveyard's decorated 24/7 as it
Yeah,
is.
that's a 24/7 fixture.
Yes,
Of
it is.
spookiness.
Indeed. We were just talking about it before the interview started, but I mean, 5 years of In Search of Darkness. You guys just celebrated that. Looking back on that, what comes to your mind thinking about the whole process of how you got started with this and where you're at?
Well, it all starts with Robin Block, the CEO, Creator VC, who I was connected with early on in the process in late 2018. And he recruited me after some back and forth to make a documentary for him about 80s horror and a whole decade of filmmaking. And making that was an absolute blast. I worked with just the most amazing team. And when we premiered it at Beyond Fest asked us if they could premiere it, and we just were flattered. And just, it's a 4+ hour film, and sitting there with an audience, it was divided into two parts. Was an absolutely surreal dream come true, because I've always wanted to have a film that people watch and react to and appreciate, and the nostalgia is absolutely flowing. But the best thing of all from that is that people wanted more. So it amazes me that that was 5 years ago. That I'm on the red carpet and standing next to sandwiched between Barbara Crampton and Kelly Maroney and Caroline Williams. And I'm with Katie Featherston and Brian Yuzna and Mick Garris and so many of the folks who were in the film came, and family and friends. It's a very warm communal feel around these films. In the making of them, in the promotion of them, in talking to you every year about them. It's something I absolutely enjoy, and it just happens to be work for me too.
I enjoy it too. I always look forward to our conversations. It's a fun annual tradition. Sometimes we catch up twice a year, and it's always enjoyable. We always have nice conversations. It's always great having you here, and you've always been great about making the time to come on the program. So I've always appreciated that as well.
Well, you ask great questions, really insightful questions, and you're very knowledgeable about the content and just in general talking about stuff. And I always find that our conversations sometimes are more like conversations than interviews, and we definitely go through rabbit hole tangents. And so, apologies in advance if we do that today.
No apologies needed. And thank you so much. That really means a lot to me coming from you, because I mean, this is you do this for a living. This is your profession. For me, I do this as a side thing and for fun. So to be complimented by someone such as yourself does mean a whole lot to me, and I do mean that a lot. Thank you so much.
Actually, I'd like to interject real quick and just say my profession is being a chauffeur to my 13-year-old kid. But, my hobby is making documentaries.
Understood. Understood and noted. You recently, they streamed In Search of Darkness, which was really nice. It was on October 6th. It was called, I believe it was called The Day of Darkness.
Darkness Day.
Darkness
yes,
Day.
indeed.
Thank you. And I mean, talk about that. I mean, looking back at that and seeing that being streamed on YouTube must have just been a hoot, considering it's been everywhere else. It's been in theaters. It's been on TV, and here it is. You guys made it available to people who haven't seen the film before. Must have absolutely been thrilling all over again for you.
Absolutely. It's we wanted to do something special. We keep on saying definitively that these movies are by the fans for the fans. And we'd be nowhere if if it weren't for the wonderful horror community that supports these movies, these In Search of Darkness documentaries. And after we released it, um, it was on Shutter for a while, and it was no longer on Shutter. And as the Darkness Day was coming, and we realized we called it. We just said, "What? First of all, what do we want to call it? Second of all, what should we do that's kind of special?" And we thought, above all else, how about stream it for 24 hours on a loop, and have it was because it would be on YouTube. We'd have some community interaction. It would be like a watch party essentially. And so it was an opportunity to get more people to watch, some people to learn that we've got a new one coming right now, which is In Search of Darkness 1990 and 1994 in a whole new decade. But ultimately, it was this wonderful celebration of all of this amazing creative movies that are just bonkers and crazy and classics and eclectic and forgotten. It's a horror lover's dream to sort of sit through and curate a list from In Search of Darkness, any of the movies, and we're here to help, and we're here to hang.
They're always fun, and it's always fun when I watch the movies, popping them in and always kind of guessing what the first movie might be, and then going from there and just kind of saying, oh, I wonder if they're going to talk about this movie, they're going to talk about that movie, oh, they're going to talk about this subject from the decade. Now, well, let's talk about the latest film, because I really want to get into that since this is your newest release. The original trilogy of In Search of Darkness, all related to 80s horror. Now we're in, as the title says, 1990 to 1994. How did the decision get made to focus on the 90s as the next project?
Well, kind of by fan demand, actually. A lot of people are saying, "What are you going to do next?" We've done 3 movies, all long form documentaries, 4 to 5 hours long, covering the 80s, and it still wasn't enough. It still didn't cover everything, but we kind of thought it's time to evolve with a new decade. And we considered the 70s, we considered the 90s, we considered other decades. And we like to put it to the audience and survey them. What do you want? What is most important to you? What do you want to see next? And the rallying cry to do 90s next was absolutely overwhelming. The biggest problem, you kind of allude to this, it's a good problem to have, is that a lot of times people are like, what movie's going to be next? And then they end this documentary after 4 to 5 hours, and they're like, they still didn't do my movie. And trust me, I'm a completist. I wish I could put everything in there, but that was sort of the reason why we kept on coming back, part 2 and part 3 to the 80s. Now that we're in the 90s, we thought we'd try something a little different and divide it into 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. Part 1, that is now available to pre-order at 90shorrordoc.com until Halloween at the witching hour. That movie was, I wanted to make sure that was a long-form documentary as well. Part of the approach at first was like, well, maybe we'll do part 1 and part 2 where it's a little shorter, but we could still cover more material. And I realized that people want these long-form documentaries. They want more bang for their buck. And the way they're organized, year to year and chapters in between each year is something that people really gravitate to and appreciate. So I just thought, well, here's an opportunity just to pack more films and some television as well. Like you can't do 1990 and say, well, Stephen King's It miniseries doesn't qualify because it's television. That's not even a consideration. So I just thought, we got to integrate some TV as well. And we ended up this is now going to be, with credits, a 6-hour film.
Wow. Oh, wow. I think this is the longest of all of those. Right?
Yeah. In Search of Darkness 3 is about, with credits, it's about 5 hours and 40 minutes or so. This is about 15 to 20 minutes longer.
Wow.
So ultimately, it's And it's
Yeah.
still not enough. And people will watch it and say, why
Yeah.
didn't you do blank? And I'll say,
Yeah.
trust me, I tried.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's like anything, right? Is there's never enough. It's always like the top. Whenever you do a list, right? It's always about the snubs, or nominations for awards. It's always about the snubs.
Yeah.
And with this,
Well,
you could have done
if
a
I could
50-hour
just,
movie, and they'd be like, "Why didn't you do this?" It's like, oh my god.
it's true. I just want to sort of, make sure I throw this in there before we sort of really dive into it. And the thing is, what I realized very quickly, because I watched many of these movies in the theater and on the video store shelves and on cable in the 90s, so I saw so many of these things, but 30 years on, I'd forgotten a lot of titles. There's some that I just would go back to over and over and over, like ad nauseum. Like I can't tell you how many times I've seen Bram Stoker's Dracula,
Yeah.
Silence of the Lambs, Army of Darkness, Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, aka Brain Dead. But I realized there were so many that I'd forgotten. And when I was approaching the 90s, saying, well, what do I want to do? Because a lot of people kind of seem to forget. We're kind of calling it a lost decade for
Yeah.
some. But you realize that there are, oh my gosh, forgot about that, forgot about that, forgot about that. I rented that 5,000 times. Oh my gosh, it's such a great film. There's so much more fun, and you've got this balance between filmmakers trying to evolve the genre with grittier material, edgier material, more meta material, but it's still side by side with the carryover of all our favorite 80s icons: Pinhead, Freddy, Chucky, the Tall Man, Jason. They're all there.
Yeah.
In sequels or reinventions, especially with Freddy. He dies and then he's back with New Nightmare in our world, in our reality, quote unquote. So I wanted to just sort of point that out, that I once again was presented with the most wonderful problem of what do I pick? Because there's not enough time to cover all the titles that everybody wants,
Yeah.
including myself.
Sure. Well, I was going to say, I mean, you've done 4 of these documentaries, the 3 In Search of Darkness and then In Search of Tomorrow. Did that experience doing those movies make it easier for you when you were prepping for this particular movie, or was it just like starting over from scratch?
It's always starting over from scratch because you have to really create the foundation for a film. And ultimately, every interview that I did that was a brand new interview, I'm not only doing the first half of the decade, I'm doing the entire decade. Because when you sit down with someone, you don't want to take the risk of they're not around when you need them for part 2.
Yeah.
So all my interviews are decade-spanning interviews. I've banked a massive amount of material for part 2, and we'll get new faces in as well. But for the people who I did sit down with, there's lots of material, that doesn't come out until I sat down with John Carpenter, for example. And I should probably head people off at the pass if they're expecting In the Mouth of Madness. Our releases, what we do for consistency is we do based on North American release dates, because release dates are all over the map for all movies, especially international movies that come domestically. They can be anywhere, but if we want some consistency in terms of release, we've always done American release date. So In the Mouth of Madness it might say 1994 on IMDb, but it came out in the beginning of 1995. So we have John Carpenter talking about body bags and talking about the advances of CG and all that kind of stuff like that. He's all across this documentary talking about very specific things that he has observations of or was involved in. But when it comes to In the Mouth of Madness, for example, that's going to be in 95 to 99.
I was not aware of that. I saw that in the theaters, and I don't remember that. So there you go.
And that's a great movie. That's like a prime example of sort of meta filmmaking.
Yeah.
It's sort of the prototypical 90s film, because it's very savvy in terms of appreciating the intellect of the audience. It sort of coasts on the fame of, the pop culture zeitgeist knowledge of Stephen King, with Sutter Kane, but turns him into this almost J.D. Salinger mystery of who is Sutter Kane, and what is our reality, and when things are falling apart all around us, is it just us, or is it really reality falling apart? It's part of John Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy.
Yeah.
So,
One of my favorites. I think it might have been the last great Carpenter movie that he did, in my opinion.
yeah.
I mean,
Mm.
it's just I remember seeing that in the theaters, going, man, this is awesome. I mean, that and Prince of Darkness, to me, I think those are his underrated movies. I think they kind of get overshadowed by a lot of the early '80s stuff, and of course, obviously,
Well,
Halloween.
it's a great thing to have so many amazing titles that you don't know, you can't pick.
Yeah.
That's a good problem to have.
Yes.
But anyway, here I am already talking about In Search of Darkness 95.
Exactly. We've already jumped ahead. Well, I mean, speaking of getting back to the early '90s, you just mentioned talking to certain people about the entire decade, but as a filmmaker, putting this movie together in these first 5 years, does it make it easier for you in terms of concentrating on 5 years versus doing multiple movies over 10 years?
It's an overwhelming task to do 10 years because you really need as many people as possible to cover the bases. And so the recruiting of the on-screen talent is quite a task. Putting the movie together, whether it's 5 years or 10 years of a decade, the way we divide it up in movie segments and topic chapters, it's not hard at all. I'm very at ease with the process of prepping these interviews, conducting these interviews, writing. I script this thing from top to bottom. When people say, well, how do you write a documentary? You're sitting there, you're interviewing people. Well, once you do these interviews, you curate the best bites and you combine people talking about a subject, and it's an evolution of discussion. It takes a writer's mind, to organize and to script it and put it all together so it makes sense. And you want to decide, how do I want to reflect this time? How do I want to reflect these people's differing opinions? There's a tremendous amount of writing, but also self-editing in terms of how you want to best present this. But this is something that I've been doing. This is now the 5th movie in a row of a similar formula to be able to do it. If anything, the hardest part was cutting it off halfway through the decade and saying, I like to put these, a nice fine bow at the end, but this is really a to be continued ending. So that was probably my biggest challenge.
And I'm sure too. I mean, someone such as yourself who has done so much of this already, I'm sure you probably have already visualized a lot of what ifs and things that may or may not happen as well, that help you kind of shorthand it. Plus, with your team, I mean, I'm sure a lot of the people that worked with you on the other movies are working with you on this one. So I'm sure there's a shorthand there as well, where you can go to someone or someone can come to you and go, hey, this is what I'm thinking, or here's what I'm thinking. And I'm sure it cuts down the process a little bit. I mean, obviously, 6 hour documentary is still a lot of work.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of clearance, I'm sure, too.
The hardest part is when it's done and it's put together, which is where we are now, and you're polishing it and adding music and so on and so forth, and you are watching this movie over and over and over and over for the fine details that you want to make sure, oh, that's got to be correct, oh, that we missed that, oh, we got to add that. It's incredibly intricate, and you need to have an attention for detail for this job, because if you don't, it's like grasping sand on the beach.
Yeah.
You can walk away with a 6-hour movie in your hand, but so many particles are going to slip through your fingers. So many details. So I as a fan of this stuff, want to make a movie that I would enjoy as a fan, but also would expect as a fan that the movie gets correct or alludes to something that I would be like, oh yeah, wow, I didn't even think of that. But of course, they mentioned this, and you would do that or show that or go down that rabbit hole. These are the things that I know our audience loves and wants. So it's quite, when I'm done, Sandy Beach,
Yeah.
margarita.
And then on to the next one.
Yes, exactly.
Before you know it, Robin's on the phone. Let's go.
Robin's like, you get a 2-day break and then
Yeah.
start putting In Search of Darkness 95 to 99.
Exactly.
Thank you. It's so gracious.
How many movies do you think will be? How many movies is it looking like will make the final cut of the film?
That's a good question, and I had the number, and I don't have it at the top of my head because I've been going back and forth with so many details.
Mm-hmm.
But I might have written it somewhere. But I don't have it in front of me,
That's
so
okay.
I apologize. Oh wait, no, I do. See, here's the problem when you don't rely on your own memory and you're trying to look for the information.
Oh yes, know it well.
71
Wow.
movies and TV segments.
Wow, that's a lot. And
not to mention the chapters in between as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how many chapters are you looking at doing?
Let's see.
Or have been done.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, arguably 6.
Wow. Yeah, so there you go. There's your 6 hours. I'm surprised it's not longer.
You got 5 years.
Yeah.
You have to bookend it, and then you have the chapters in between.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, that's amazing. You know what? You're right. It's not long enough because you figure if you're doing if the movie's 6 hours and you're doing 5 years, that's an hour. If you do an hour a year, that's 5 hours, and then you have an hour for the other 6 chapters, which is like 15 minutes.
The great news is that each year we have more films per year than we normally have in an average In Search of Darkness movie, because if you think about it, for 5 years versus 10 years of coverage of the decade, I have the same, if not longer, running time. I now have twice as much time per year to cover movies.
Yeah.
So this is what I think everybody wants and appreciates, and you guys could all let me know. Or you could say, this was a terrible idea, never do it again, only a decade, and I ran out of popcorn. So
I think fans are going to love whatever you put in front of them because it's just great stuff. What I love is that I mean, it's insightful. The interviews are great. The graphics, everything is so good in these films. What I love too is that you allow fans to submit ideas. Creator VC reaches out and says, "Hey, give us 10 movies that you want to see on here." I'm sure the response was insane. Were there any films, and you don't have to say what, because I don't want to ruin any surprises for myself or for anybody else out there. Were there any films that were overwhelmingly picked or selected, or was there something that you were like, wow, I can't believe this is very popular that you may have thought may not have been very popular?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say off the bat, because we literally do a survey where people, vote and write in titles. I don't know. I'm trying to keep my cards close to my vest.
Sure.
But the ones that you would expect to be incredibly popular there's always a couple like, oh, really? That one made it that high in the list? That's in the top 5? But it's really great because I really love the back and forth I get to have with the community talking about what they want to see. And there are certain things, I've got my faves. I have a litmus test, or let your finger and put it in the air and see which way the wind blows.
Sure.
In terms of what people want. But at the end of the day, I want people literally telling me, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? And I do my best to put it in there. I do my best to have some talent representing that film if possible. We have experts as well filling in the gaps if we don't. What is very cool about these movies ultimately is, like every single In Search of Darkness movie before, we have people who represent these films, but they also talk about their favorites. So they also make observations about favorites. So they might be talking, Michael Gross, for example, star of Tremors, talking all about Tremors. That's very cool. It's great to have him. But he has some very, very select words to say about, Stephen King's Misery. Rob Reiner directed Misery, because he has a certain perspective as an actor from Family Ties, where everyone expects him to be, the prim and proper, perfect dad,
Yeah.
From a TV sitcom. And then when he's doing something that's not that way, he hears about it from Karens here and there, at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And so he had, he did not pull punches when he said, I'm an actor. This is a role. I'm not that person. It's very cool to have that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm sort of getting into the weeds with the answer, but ultimately it's really nice to have the fans at your back, sort of guiding the ship in terms of the kind of stuff that they want. And I am more than happy to oblige. And I will volunteer one more detail in that if you've seen the evolution of In Search of Darkness 1, 2, and 3, 1 was all North American films. 2, we welcomed international stuff as well. And 3, it was a mixed bag of everything, especially the real deep cuts, and the dark, dusty boxes, VHS boxes in the back of the horror section. That part 3 seemed to get the most overwhelmingly positive response out of all 3 films in terms of the content
Wow.
that people really want, in terms of the scope and the breadth of the types of movies we cover. And so I've applied that formula a little more to this first In Search of Darkness 90s entry.
Wow, that's really interesting. Oh, that's really good to know. I mean, all 3 are fantastic, but it is very interesting. I would have thought maybe the first one.
I stand in a lab coat, and I have a clipboard, and I look at all the data and the stats.
Yes.
And I have my nerd glasses on and my pocket protector, and I say, actually, we should do this instead, based on the survey results.
And I can see that happening. Very good. Well, you're doing a hell of a job, I have to say.
No, it's very heartfelt, and there's so many things that I wish that I could do that I can't. But it's actually, to put a very fine point on it, when Robin Block first said, "Oh, we should get everyone surveyed to see what they want," my first thought was, I don't want to make a movie that's edited by committee. But ultimately, it's not. It's making a movie that is informed by what the audience wants, and I still get to make the movie that I want to make, which is a wonderful thing. But I know as I'm doing it that I'm delivering much more material than people have requested, and that makes me happy too.
Well, what's great with these films is that they're a great time capsule. You've been able to get interviews with people who are sadly no longer with us. I mean, talk about like having a beautiful time capsule to that, in their memory and their contributions. The films, The In Search of Darkness, In Search of Tomorrow, they provide so much nostalgia for those of us that lived through those years. I sometimes wonder, in this new digital age we live in, if that's something that the younger generations will appreciate, because everything's sort of readily available at any given time. And I was wondering if that's something that crosses your mind on occasion.
Yeah, when I used to work at Entertainment Tonight, I used to think in my mind that my coworkers all probably knew more about entertainment than I did, and many did. I was not the smartest entertainment knowledge person in the room, but as time progressed, more and more younger coworkers came in, and I started recognizing that the younger they were, the more that they struggled with the overwhelming amount of information to tackle, and they didn't know where to start. And sometimes they just froze, essentially, figuratively, And then so I realized that what we really need, and the service that this movie provides, In Search of Darkness 1, 2, 3, Tomorrow, 90s, if anything, and especially with Letterboxd being such a big thing these days, it's a curation list. They learn all about these movies. They get to see how they're celebrated and how they're loved, and each one is important to anyone for any particular reason, sometimes beyond the movie itself, but the circumstances that they saw it in. But this is the ultimate curation list for a whole generation that wasn't around when it happened, and they know that it's cool stuff, and they want to learn what's to see. and why. And a movie like this really sort of fulfills that. It sort of checks that box for a lot of people who don't even know where to start. And a lot of people I started realizing after In Search of Darkness 1 came out, they'd say, "Oh, spooky season's going to begin. I don't know what I'm going to watch. I'm going to put on In Search of Darkness to get ideas." And that was like the ultimate compliment.
Yeah, I would say definitely. That's fantastic. Well, let's get people information as to how they can pre-order the film. As we mentioned, it's from now until midnight on Halloween. And again, where can listeners go to purchase their pre-order of In Search of Darkness 1990?
Go to 90s Horror Doc, 90s Horror Doc, DOC, 90shorrordoc.com. And that's got all the information, all the cool stuff you get. You get to be in the credits alongside your horror heroes like Heather Langenkamp and Doug Bradley and Mike Flanagan, and David Gastamalchian and Kayla Cooper. All these cool horror folks, you get to have your credits right alongside them. You get 2 super duper cool posters. You get a digital copy of the film. You get a physical copy of the film, which seems to be harder and harder to come by these days.
Yes.
In the days of streaming. And for those of you who say, "Oh, well, I'll just catch it on streaming," it's not streaming anywhere anytime soon. And ultimately, when it does, streaming is fleeting. These things are on for a while and then they disappear. And then when you want to watch it, you wish you had that copy on your shelf with your name in the credits. So lots of other cool swag. You can get a T-shirt if you want. Everyone gets a sew on pack in this cool sew on patch, and cool certificate, and I think digital download of the soundtrack. I don't know if I mentioned that. It becomes a listicle of things. So go to 90shorrordoc.com. There's so much to chew on, so much good stuff, but it's limited time. And people always think, "Oh, well, I'll just get it next time it comes around." And then they're wishing that they were like their friend who has it and has a copy of it.
Yes. And I can tell you right now, I'm looking at my trilogy of In Search of Darkness right there in its nice little case that came in Part 3's swag bundle. And there's my In Search of Tomorrow over there as well.
And if you missed the In Search of Darkness trilogy and you want to get that, you can get that as well. So there's other things available as well if you missed them, like, the In Search of Tomorrow companion book and so on. So, there's bundles, there's add-ons, there's all sorts of stuff. We're a small independent company, Creator VC, make and manufacture and distribute this stuff ourselves. And so now's the time to strike when the iron is hot, when we're doing a pre-order campaign. The movie digitally will be available at the end of November, In Search of Darkness 90s, and then physical copies will go out at the end of December, beginning of January, and you'll have it in your hands. Can't go out any sooner because we got to add you all to the end credits.
Exactly. That's the whole. Yeah, it would kind of suck if you
be naked without it.
Yeah, you go and you do it, and you're like, "Where's my name?" And you guys are like, we just went ahead.
Oops, there was such a rush to get it out, we forgot the end credits.
Exactly.
That's not going to happen.
Hey, I don't think I've ever asked you previously. Are you on social media? Do you want people to follow you on social media, or not? If so, please plug away.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Twitter/X. If you want a safe space that only talks about pop culture and cool things, I'm at Tiki Ambassador on Twitter. I'm also my pop culture site, It Came From Blog. So at It Came From Blog, you can get that on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. You can interact with me in all those ways. You can find me as David Weiner on Blue Sky. The problem is we're so diversified now. I am intermittent with all these things now, depending on how busy I am finishing a 6-hour film.
I was going to say, you kind of got a lot going on already. I can't imagine you're posting too much.
I love interacting with folks. I love, doing exchanges and stuff like that, just about whatever topic and things like that. I just keep things apolitical in this current, climate, and I make it pop culture and fun and toxic environment is something that I thrive in and try and cultivate when it comes to my personal social media.
And you know what? There are a lot of us out there that really appreciate that. And you know what? It's nice to be able to go someplace that's fun, where everybody can kind of, unite under some fun pop culture stuff and have a great time.
Yeah.
And
check your brain at the door,
exactly.
kind of, safe space.
Yeah, exactly. And In Search of Darkness is something that we can all get around and enjoy and see. And again, if you haven't seen the 80s versions, they are available for purchase. And of course, as we've been talking about, purchase your copy of In Search of Darkness 1990 to 1994. And I will get into the packages, the different tiers you can get after this interview. David, as always, it's always fun. It's just a blast having you on. Time goes by so quickly. Another Halloween is coming and going now, and this is great catching up, and I can't wait to see this latest installment on the film.
Well, it's a pleasure watching time goes by to you. I feel like we're sitting on the porch with our Bartles and James,
yes.
Sitting in rockers at this point. We've done so many.
I know.
And we keep on coming back. You helping me to promote, all of these Creator VC documentaries and projects that we do is your enthusiasm and your encouragement and your willingness to spread the word, because you dig this stuff yourself is the endorsement that means a lot to me and to all of us at Creator VC.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me, and you and your team do. I'm no joke. I mean, you guys do a hell of a job. It's always fun. I watch these movies by myself, and I get excited when the opening credits start, and I'm cheering and I'm going crazy here, like I'm in a room full of people. So the movies are fantastic. You do just such an amazing job. I love the films, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. You guys always have an open door here. Anytime you need anything, I will upload trailers. I'll upload anything Creator VC does. And obviously, you always have, carte blanche here. You come on whenever you want. And that goes for Robin and Ian and everybody else part of Creator VC. So I wish you the best with this film. And I can't wait to see it. Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kudos to the Creator VC team. I can't do this all by myself.
Yes.
I try, but then I get absolutely nothing done.
then you'd end up like a blob of jelly in the corner from all the energy.
I cannot hog all the credit because I'm useless by myself. I need my team.
David, thanks so much. Congratulations with everything. Can't wait to have you back on again soon. Have a great Halloween.
Likewise. Happy Halloween to everybody.
And as I put this interview to rest, I want to thank David again for being on the show. If you can believe this is his 9th appearance on the podcast, by far more than anyone else I've ever had in the history of the Graveyard Show podcast. I just never get tired of talking to him. Even post-interview, we were chatting for another 20 minutes about stuff. And it's just so nice to talk to David. He's such a good guy. We just get along so well, and we just have so many things in common. It's so much fun. And I do appreciate his films, and I think he's a very talented writer, filmmaker. Just like I think everybody at Creator VC is great at what they do. And again, if you have not seen these films, I cannot recommend them enough. And as David said, they're not available really for streaming anymore. So if you want to try the digital download just to kind of get a flavor for what one of these films looks like, start with In Search of Darkness. Or you can start with In Search of Tomorrow, because there's just one of those. And give it a shot. See if it's something that you like, because you never know. It may be these may be documentaries that really could change your life for watching movies and learning things too, not only about movies, but also about the time period that they're set in, because those chapters that we talked about go off and talk about certain things outside of the movies, or maybe even related to the films, the genre themselves. Like in the 80s, it's kind of talked about, Ronald Reagan as president, and home video stores and what they meant, and satanic panic, and many other things that were associated with the 80s decade. So again, In Search of Darkness, if you're not familiar with these films, take a look. Check them out online. I'm sure you can find stuff online as well. as I said, David's been on the show. This is his 9th appearance, so you can find many tombstones with his name on it. I know that sounds grim, but there are 8 other tombstones with his name on it as well. You can find those and listen to them. I also have an In Search of Darkness wing on YouTube, where if you go into that playlist, it has everyone who's been on my podcast from Creator VC, which is obviously David, and then Creator VC owner and producer Robin Block, who we also mentioned in the interview. Weary Pines, who composed the scores for In Search of Darkness 1, 2, 3, and In Search of Tomorrow. Ian Nathan, who was just recently on, he directed Creator VC's latest film that came out called Aliens Expanded, which is a documentary on James Cameron's film. And you can also find the trailer for In Search of Darkness 1990 through 94 on the Graveyard Show podcast YouTube channel, as well as many of the other streaming sites this program is on. Okay, as promised, here are the different tiers available to you for the pre-order of In Search of Darkness 1990 through 1994. I will go through each of the tiers. I will tell you what is in them. And all prices are US dollars. All right, here we go. Starting off, digital only for $49.99. The digital delivery date is estimated in November of 24. You will get a digital copy of the film In Search of Darkness 1990 through 1994. Your name will be in the credits, and you will get a digital soundtrack download of the soundtrack by New Retro Wave and a PDF booklet. The next one, the Blu-ray package, $79.99 plus shipping. Again, digital delivery date is estimated in November of 24. Shipping is estimated to be in December of 24. So you will get the Blu-ray of the film. You will get 2 posters, a sew-on patch, your name in the credits, a commemorative mini booklet, certificate, a digital copy of the film as well. You will get the soundtrack by New Retro Wave, which is a digital download, the PDF booklet, and a membership card for In Search of Darkness. Those are very cool because they have QR codes on there you can scan, and you can get discounts available depending on what if there's something on there you see. You'd be surprised what's on there. Some really good stuff on there. I did it the last time, and I got some really good stuff. The next package is the T-shirt and Blu-ray package for $119.99 plus shipping. Again, digital delivery estimated November, shipping estimated December. So you will get the Blu-ray of the film, the T-shirt. You will get 2 posters, the sew-on patch, your name in the credits, the commemorative mini booklet, certificate, digital copy of the film, a digital copy of the soundtrack by New Retro Wave, the PDF booklet, and the In Search of Darkness membership card. Next, the Associate Producer tier, which is $1,250 plus shipping. Again, digital and shipping dates are estimated the same. You will get everything in the prior packages I discussed, as well as Associate Producer credit in the movie credit. You will get an Associate Producer credit on IMDb. You will get an Associate credit on a special poster. You will get your memories/dedication in our celebratory booklet. You will get all physical rewards in T-shirts and Blu-ray package, as I just mentioned. Then there's the producer package for $2,500 plus shipping. You will get all physical rewards in the T-shirt and Blu-ray package tier, as well as a producer credit in the movie credit, a producer credit on IMDb, a producer credit on a special poster, and your memories/dedication in our celebratory booklet. And last but not least, executive producer tier, which is $5,000 plus shipping. You will get all physical rewards in the T-shirt and Blu-ray package, as well as executive producer credit in the movie credits on IMDb, on the special poster, and your memories/dedication in our celebratory booklet. That are all of the tiers available to you for the In Search of Darkness 1990 through 1994 film, and it is all available to you up until midnight on Halloween. The Graveyard Show podcast is available everywhere podcasts exist, and you can also find the Graveyard Show podcast online on YouTube, as well as some other video streaming sites. You can go on there. You can subscribe to the show. I highly recommend it because I'm doing more production for online viewing than I am podcasting. I think this is only like my 4th or 5th podcast of the year, and I'm actually uploading a lot more on the video streaming sites. You can find trailers to movies. There's a whole load of movies that I uploaded trailers for not too long ago. As I mentioned, of course, In Search of Darkness 1990 to 94 as well. You can find my show Catacombs of Horror, which is a video podcast where I talk about favorite films, scenes from favorite films. I go through and kind of do a mini watch party on some of these. The most popular are the Count Yorga films, Count Yorga, Vampire, and Return of Count Yorga. The latest 2 episodes I dropped are called Analyzing Night of the Living Dead and The Art of the TV Spot, which looks at several different commercials for movies, and I talk about how they differ in style, yet still convey some scary commercials for those of us that watched them way back in the day. So check that out, Catacombs of Horror. There's also The Caretaker Reveals, and also on The Caretaker Reveals, it's like a 4 or 5 minute videos of me just showing you items from the world of science fiction and horror. And if you want to see what a swag bundle looks like from In Search of Darkness, I did one on In Search of Darkness 3. So you can find that. That's called The Caretaker Reveals. And you can also find on these websites Graveyard Show Classics. I have a George A. Romero wing, In Search of Darkness wing, Women in Horror wing, interviews I've done with filmmakers and actresses and authors from the world of horror. So there's a lot out there online that you can check out on the Graveyard Show podcasts channels. All right, that's going to do it for me. Have a wonderful, fun, and of course, safe Halloween. I look forward to seeing you back here very soon. And as you exit the graveyard, I would like to remind you to please lock the gate behind you. We wouldn't want anyone to get out. Happy Halloween, everybody.